Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Elliot, my web guy. So today we're going to be looking at how to use NAT network inside VirtualBox. Yesterday we looked at how to use the actual NAT configuration. And you're probably wondering, what is the difference between NAT network and NAT? Well, I'm going to tell you. Well, actually, I told you yesterday that NAT, capital N, capital A, capital T, that's for a use case when you want to configure a virtual machine just to be a one of one, not necessarily in a network cluster communicating with other virtual machines. So essentially, yeah, that's it. NAT network is when you're going to have multiple computers in the same network communicating with each other, much the same way as when you have your NAT network at home behind your home router or firewall or whatever. All the computers well, actually anything that has an IP address from your router at home, they can communicate with each other pretty much because they're all on the same network. So that's what we're going to be dealing with today. So I've got two virtual machines here. You see I got a Red Hat Enterprise Linux Apache and a Red Hat Enterprise Linux MariaDB. So I've got the MariaDB one pulled up here. We're going to reset the host name. Host name CTL set host name. I think that's the command. Set host name, and we'll call this MariaDB. Unknown command verb set -0. Let's see. I think it's set dash hostname. Yeah. So if we type the word hostname, we see that it's set. I'm not seeing it at my command prompt right now because I need to enter exec bash or log out and log back in. But I'll just do exec bash, and now you see it changed to MariaDB. Okay, let's do the same for the Red Hat Enterprise, the Apache web server. So we're gonna reset its host name as well. So login as root. Enter the password, which is password. Let's get that correct. Root password. And we're going to say hostname CTL set hostname. I forgot to actually put the host name. Hostname, and we'll say Apache. And then exec bash. Okay, seems like my camera's bumping around because I've got the camera sitting on the desk and the desk is kind of shaking. So anyway, you guys are probably looking at my screen sharing. So we'll continue on. So the goal is to have these two virtual machines be able to talk to each other, the Apache and the MariaDB. So first thing we're going to do is let's pull up the, and also we want to be able to SSH into these computers from these virtual machines from the host system from my laptop, because I really don't like using the terminal or the console window because I can't scroll up, can't scroll down, can't do any copy paste. So we're gonna get all that set up. So for right now, we'll just do nmcli on the MariaDB, and we see the IP address is 10.0.2.15, which is what you're going to get when it's set for NAT. So let's look at the MariaDB settings. Let's click here, details, come down to network, and if we click on network, we see that we have it set for NAT, capital N-A-T, and we don't want that. We want to do a NAT network. So this is what we really want. So click on NAT network. Now we got to select one, and we don't have any NAT networks configured. So let's configure a NAT network. So let's discard changes. So we're going to come up here to the top of VirtualBox window, come down to networks, click on NAT networks, and we're going to add one. And let's call this network, let's double click on it, and let's give it a name. Let's call it, I don't know, let's call it, WordPress network. Or actually, let's just call it LabNet for our lab network, or lab network. Okay, 10.0.2.2. No, let's change this to 10.1.5. Okay. And we're not going to configure any port forwarding. We're going to enable DHCP, and we're going to click OK. So we got our network set up. So now we're going to come back to our virtual machine, come down to network. We're going to come to NAT network, and we're going to add this to the lab network. It's the only one that's in there right now, so it's already set. So we'll click on OK. And it updates it in real time, by the way. So when you come back over here to your virtual machine, MariaDB virtual machine, and you type nmcli, we should see the new IP address, which should be 10.1.5 something. So let's do nmcli. Okay, it hasn't changed yet, so more than likely we need to bring the interface down and up. So we're going to do nmcli con for connection, and the connection is called ENP0S3. And we know that because if we do nmcli con, we see we have a connection of ENP0S3. So we're going to do nmcli con up ENP0S3. So we're bringing the connection down and up. And now when we do nmcli again, we still see the same old IP address. Okay, let me make sure I did that correctly. Oh, I see what the issue is. I changed the one for Apache. Let me come down here to MariaDB. No wonder. So click on MariaDB, come down to network, and we need to make sure that this is on the correct network. So we're going to come down to NAT network. Lab network is the only one that we have configured. So now, even here, I just see it updating on its own. So I didn't have to really do anything. So let's type in nmcli, and maybe we still have to do something because it's not working yet. Still set to 10.0.2.15. We're going to do nmcli con up ENP0S3 again. And now we're going to do nmcli. And now we see we have 10.1.5.5. Okay, let's do the same thing for the Apache server over here. Okay, nmcli. This one's already set, 10.1.5.4. So it's actually already set. So that's good. Perfect. Now what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to SSH into each of these servers from my laptop so that I can actually use, well, first thing, before I even do that, let's just make sure these two servers can communicate with each other. So let's make this a little bit smaller. Let's move one over here, and let's move the MariaDB to the right and the Apache to the left. Okay, so now, screen's not big enough. See, this is why I want to SSH into it, because I get tired of the not having enough screen real estate. So ping 10.1.5.5, which is the IP address of the MariaDB server. So we're going to ping that. And I'm not getting anything. Was that the correct? Okay, let's cancel that. Oops. Oh yeah, actually I am getting something. I wasn't selected on the screen. Cool, so it works. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually set up SSH so I can SSH from my local computer into my virtual machines. So to be able to do that, I'm gonna have to set up port forwarding, okay? So let me close these screens out. Actually, let me just minimize. So let's set up port forwarding for the Apache server. Now, how do we do that? I think we have to do that in the actual network screen that I was on. So let's see. I'm just clicking in here looking for the IP address really quick. I remembered it, so, I don't really need it. So let me come back to networks. Now, let's come over to port forwarding, and let's say SSH to Apache. Okay. And let's really make sure that we know what the IP address is of the Apache web server. So one more time, NMCLI is 10.1.5.4, okay? So host IP we don't need, guest IP we do need, 10.1.5.4. The guest port is going to be 22, and the host port, let's say 2204, because we use the last digits, the last digits of the IP address. And let's add another one, and let's call this one SSH to MariaDB. Okay. And this one's going to be 2205. Why am I using 22? 22 is the default port for SSH, so I'm just coming up with my own convention to use as the host port. The host port is a port that you're actually going to use in the SSH command when you SSH to one of these particular computers, because we're actually going to be SSHing to localhost, and we're going to need to supply one of these ports. This is how we're going to know which server we're going to end up on. So let me pull up my terminal here. Actually open another terminal window, and let's make it a different color, just so we know we're on one computer or the other. All right. So let's make our fonts a little bit bigger as well. Okay. So we're gonna, you know what? Let's do this. There we go. A lot better. All right. So here on the black screen, we're gonna SSH into localhost, and let's SSH as student. I have a student account on both of those servers. So let's SSH into localhost over port 2204. This should be the Apache server, which it says Apache. So we logged in okay. And then over this one, we're going to SSH into localhost again, as student at localhost and over port 2205. Taking a little while there. Localhost, make sure I did everything correctly. 2205, okay? I'm gonna cancel this. I'm gonna use Telnet just to make sure. Telnet localhost 2205. Yep, that's correct. So it is. You have to be careful sometimes when you're actually using Telnet to test something, because you could get a positive result like this right here, but it could be telling you that just because the port forwarding is working correctly. So the network, the virtual network is responding to you, telling you that you have an okay connection, but that doesn't necessarily mean that SSH is set up correctly. While that's thinking, let's come back over here and make sure we have this set up correctly. MariaDB 2205, yeah. Yep, looks good. Tell you what, while that's trying to do its thing, I'm going to pull up the MariaDB server and just on the console and just make sure that we have it, that we have the IP address 10.1.5.5. Is that what I had over here? 10.1.5. Oh, I got 10.1.5.0. So that's my mistake. So let me fix that. Click apply. Come back over here. And now we should be able to log in. Yep. Okay. So cool. We just saw how to set up, how to use NAT networking. Basically, like I said, you come over to your virtual machines, you come down to network, and you select a NAT network. If you don't have any configured, you won't see any in this name drop down. Here we see one called Lab Network because we actually set it up. And how did we set it up? On the main screen of VirtualBox, we click these three dots up here, you know, up the top. We came down to network, and we actually clicked on NAT networks, and we click create. I can create another one. I'm not going to right now, but you can. And yeah, that's all we did. We created our network. We gave it an IP address range here of 10.1.5, subnetted it with 24 bits of subnetting. Okay, so once we had the network set up, we were able to click on each of our servers, come into the details of them, click on the network of the server, and click on NAT network, and then you know, choose the name of the network. And DHCP is set up, so each of those servers is going to get their own IP address. Now that we have that set up, you can easily in your Etsy host file, you can set up a host name resolution for each of these servers. So sudo vi Etsy hosts, password is password. So now we could say 10.1.5, oops, 10.1.5.4, and we could say Apache, HTTPD, or web server. So if we want to ping web server, oops. So we're pinging the web server. Over here, we do the same thing for MariaDB, sudo vi Etsy host, password is password. And then for here, we put the IP address of the database server. And we can say database, MySQL, or MariaDB. So we give it three different names. So we can ping to database. We can ping to MariaDB, or MySQL. So I hope you got something out of that. That's how you use NAT networking inside of VirtualBox. Not too difficult. Set up your own virtual NAT networks. All right. Peace out.